In this video, my neighbor Karen called the police on me for grilling in my own backyard. She said my barbecue was violating her human rights and that I was a murderer because I cooked meat. But when she started taking pictures of my house and threatened my dog, that is when things got real. Let me tell you how I ended up teaching this militant vegan a lesson she will never forget. Today's title story starts like this. We've all had that one person who loves to be the center of attention, especially if they just started a new lifestyle. When you're in middle school, yeah, acting like you're more important than you are is still something that you're figuring out at that age. But when you are an adult, it is just sad to watch. Luckily, I've only had two people I can name off the top of my head that I actually remember being like this. My friend's girlfriend who made her abroad studying in France, her whole personality, and my neighborhood Karen, who I was so blown away by that I'm now making a Reddit post about her. If you're like me, a suburban homeowner in the United States, you know how common barbecues are to our culture. Even if you're not super close with whoever is throwing it, it is just a nice excuse to hang out on a summer's afternoon. I host probably 2 a month during the summertime, and it's never been an issue. I've got a moderately nice house with the best feature being the spacious backyard where I can grill and have people over without bothering anyone. The people I invite are nice. We keep it chill and everything wraps up before it gets dark. Sounds like innocent fun, right? Well, let me introduce you to Karen, a neighbor of mine who moved here about a year ago and is one of the most self-centered people I've ever met. As soon as she moved in, she basically started posting on the neighborhood's Facebook page almost daily. I'm not really on there, but my wife is, so I got to hear about it. It would be one thing if she were just the weird middle-aged woman who loves to make things about herself, but this was much worse. She would actively go out of her way to get into our business, especially during the first full summer she was here. I learned very quickly that she was vegan. Now, before I say anything, I have no problem with that on its own. People should be able to eat whatever they want, but no one gets to tell anyone else what is right and wrong to eat and expect it to go their way. Well, let me tell you, Karen was one of those animal rights activists dialed up to 10 on every category. We kept getting these weird looks from her as we greeted people. She lived across the street and would just stand there with her arms folded, shaking her head as we greeted people and showed them to the backyard. It was funny to watch her, really. She had to have been out there for an hour straight. I did not bother going to her, and eventually she just came to me. After the party was over and my wife and I were starting to clean up, Karen came to our door and gave me a pamphlet. At first glance, I thought it was some kind of cult book. It had crazy images of goat heads and demonic-looking people on it. But the text below all that explained that it was a wake-up call for animal killers. Or I guess it could be a promotional pamphlet for HOA communities. But that's just my guess. But anyway, I tried to ask her what was going on here, but all she had to say to me was that I needed to fix my lifestyle before she did anything about it. At night, looking at this crazy pamphlet with a woman I'd never officially met, it was super creepy. It felt like one of those half-sensible nightmares we all get when we are stressed out. I went inside and told my wife, who was just as freaked out as I was, I really wish I kept the pamphlet just for the laughs I probably get now. But at the time, it felt like the thing was going to curse my family if I held on to it. And yes, I skimmed it. All it was 100 different ways to say veganism was the only moral diet and everyone else should be put on trial for murder. I really did not want anything in my house that said that, especially when we had frequent visitors. The next few days when we were not even having a cookout, we would get these dirty looks from Karen every time we went outside to walk our door. Most of the time, ignoring her did the trick. But there was one time when she yelled at me when I came up my driveway asking if I would eat my dog if she grilled him for me. At that point, I was seriously convinced that she had some kind of mental illness or was on drugs and figured that if she made any other kind of threats like that, I was going to talk to her about how insane she sounded. I decided to have our next weekend's party the same as always. I did not mention Karen to anyone, but just kind of subtly asked everyone to go straight to the backyard after parking. However, about an hour in, when I just started to pull some of the ribs off the grill, my wife informed me that Karen was on her porch taking pictures of our house from the street. I finished the next batch of food and went to the front to see what was going on here. Karen was in fact in the street, but she put her phone away when she saw me come out to the front while my wife watched from behind. I kindly asked Karen not to take pictures of our house before I apologized for getting off on the wrong foot with her. Then I stupidly asked her if she wanted to come over and give us a chance since there was a salad in the fridge I could make for her. And then no one would get upset. I got one of the harshest looks I've ever gotten from someone her age. She's like 90 pounds, but still looked like she would figure out a way to kill me. Kind of like a banshee or something. She went on to preach about how we were murderers and celebrating the death of millions of innocent animals by having these cookouts. I tried to get a word in, but she was dead set on her sermon getting its full length. After a few minutes of being shamed, I kindly explained that it was just our lifestyle and that we respected her decision to be vegan, but that it didn't mean that she could say these kinds of things to us when we did nothing to her. Some of the things, especially about my dog, could be seen as real threats. I really did not want to test how serious she was being, nor did I want cops involved. Well, apparently though, Karen did. During our next party, we got a knock at our door. It was two cops and they looked really serious. As someone who's got a slight fear of police, it was terrifying to have them suddenly questioning us about what was going on in our own backyard. We asked what was going on, and apparently Karen had called them saying that we were harassing her and torturing her by exploiting her human rights and supporting murder. So yeah, she was arguing that we were violating her human rights. It was laughably stupid to have to explain everything to two people who thought that we were cannibals or something. I tried to remain as calm as possible and even showed them the grill where we were cooking. They agreed that nothing was wrong, but they still went back to Karen to get more information. Of course, that went nowhere. They apologized for the incident and warned Karen not to abuse their services on people who had not done anything wrong. Karen and I just stared at each other after they left. I started yelling at her about how crazy she was and how messed up it is to accuse us of things like that. She just looked at me smugly and said, "It was your own doing." Damn, it was so hard not to want to punch her. It was just such a petty display, and she obviously cared more about dead farm animals than her neighbors. There was one more attempt that she made to call the cops. It was not even on a day that we were cooking meat or even going outside. She went out of her way to go to the police and have them called on us. Well, this time it was much more serious. The accusation was that I was a murderer and she could not hate the secret from the law anymore. Luckily, it was the same cops who came to see us before, and they already had an idea of what they were getting into. I was able to explain once again that this was an insane attempt from an obnoxious vegan to halt our lifestyle. And this time, Karen was really asking to get arrested. She came up to the porch where we were all talking, and she said that real cops would recognize that what I was doing was murder. It was embarrassing from every angle. And once again, though, she got off with a warning. I was not going to argue with a cop, but I sure as hell wanted to. Well, around this time, I decided that she had to be called out for what she was doing. There were a few online spaces that the neighborhood had, and I knew that making just one post about her would calm me down a bit. But wouldn't you know it, Karen beat me to it. On her profile was a string of public posts about how I was a known murderer and needed to be stopped. She also made up some BS about me paying off the cops who she called on me, and that she needed the neighborhood's advice. Luckily, no one gave her any. I assumed this was not the first time she had made crazy stuff up like this, and taking a look at her post from the last few years confirmed that there were plenty of other people she was using for her propaganda. I posted a list of things Karen had done since she began interacting with us, and that I was not afraid to get the law involved with her if needed to. She had plenty of chances, and I was done holding back with her before long. I got a few likes from my friends and the people from our parties. She got a few harsh comments from them, harsher than I was, and I decided that she would get the message that there would only be more of this if she tried to bother us anymore. Well, if there's anything to know about Karen, though, they won't stop until they actually get in trouble. I had a strange sense it was not over, and I decided that the next time I grilled it would be just for my family and would be much more casual. Of course, Karen soon figured out what was going on, and the next thing I knew, these horrible blasting screams came from her yard, obviously from a bunch of speakers behind the fans. So I got my family to go inside, and everyone was naturally freaking out and or confused. It was humiliating. I did not need to hear her to know what the point of this stunt was, but she chanted it over the fence just for good measure, I guess. After a few minutes, when I got all the food inside and supposedly tricked her into thinking I threw it out, the speakers turned off. At that point, I was done. She had her chance to be a normal person, and well, she blew it. After doing a bit of research and scoping my options, I decided to send a cease and desist letter talking about her threats, audio disturbance, and general harassment because of something we had the right to do. I really tried to hold back, but for some reason, I did not want to go soft on the lady who talked about barbecuing my dog. Weird, huh? Well, honestly, I expected more of a fight than what I got after the letter went through. Supposedly, it was enough of a threat for Karen to give up on her mission to convert us, though I doubt it's done anything positive for our reputation with her. We never checked in on her again. We were too scared. Plus, what was the point? Did we want to be friends with a psychopath like her? I sure didn't. There was no shame in telling my guests about what happened at the next cookout. Most of them just thought it was funny or wanted to meet her, probably just to debate her. As much as I said I would like to see that, we all decided to just not poke the bear before she accepted my threat and go to court over all this. I can practically sense her glaring through her blinds as I write this. Once again, I really don't care if you're a vegan. Just don't make threats. And I wouldn't expect there to be such a negative reputation for the lifestyle, but, well, I don't expect that to happen for a while. And now we got an update to the story that goes like this. Holy crap, Reddit. I did not expect my original post to blow up like it did. Thank you all for the support and the awards. A lot of you asked for an update, and boy, do I have one for you. Buckle up because this gets wild. So after I sent that assist letter, things were quiet for about 2 weeks. I thought maybe Karen had finally gotten the message and would leave us alone. My wife and I were actually starting to relax again. We had a small family barbecue planned for my brother's birthday. Nothing big, just immediate family. And that is when Karen decided to escalate things to a whole new level of crazy. The day of the barbecue, I was out back prepping the grill around 3 p.m. when I heard this loud banging on my front door. I walked around to see what was going on, and there was Karen with what looked like a whole damn film crew. It turns out she had contacted some local vegan activist group and convinced them that I was some kind of serial animal killer who needed to be exposed. There were about 8 people with camera signs and a megaphone. Karen was leading the charge, screaming about how I was a neighbor terrorist and demanding I come outside to face my crimes. The signs had pictures of slaughtered animals with my address written on them. It was absolutely insane. I called the police immediately, but Karen's group had apparently planned for this. They stayed on the public sidewalk and claimed they were exercising their right to peaceful protest. The cops who showed up were the same ones from before, and they looked as fed up with Karen as I was. Sir, technically, they're not breaking any laws as long as they stay on public property, Officer Bohr told me, but we will keep an eye on them. The protest went on for 3 hours. My brother's birthday party was completely ruined. My 8-year-old niece was crying because of all the screaming and the graphic images on the signs. My elderly parents had to leave early because the stress was too much for them. But here's where Karen really screwed herself over. Around 6 p.m., when most of the protesters had left and it was just Karen and 2 other people, she decided that staying on the sidewalk was not enough. I was inside cleaning up when my wife ran in and said that Karen had jumped our fence and was in our backyard. I looked out the window and there she was dumping some kind of red liquid all over my grill while recording herself on her phone. She was screaming about cleansing the murder weapon and how she was performing a citizen's arrest on my barbecue equipment. That's what I knew I had to her. I called 911 again, but this time I also started recording everything from my window. Karen saw me and actually started posing for my camera, like she was proud of what she was doing. She pulled out what looked like a crowbar and started attacking my grill, trying to destroy it completely. The police arrived just as she was attempting to drag my expensive grill towards the fence. Officer Bohr took one look at the scene and immediately placed Karen under arrest for criminal trespass, destruction of property, and harassment. "Ma'am, you've crossed the line from protesting to criminal behavior," he told her as he put on the handcuffs. Karen started screaming that she was the victim, that I had forced her to take action by continuing to torture animals in front of her. She demanded to speak to her supervisor and claimed the police were all corrupt and being paid off by Big Me. The whole thing was caught on security cameras, her phone, and the phones of the two protesters who were still there. There was no way she could deny what she had done. But wait, it gets better. 3 days later, I got a call from Detective Wasco. Apparently, when they searched Karen's phone after her arrest, they found some seriously disturbing stuff. So she had been stalking not just me, but several other neighbors who she deemed animal murderers. She had detailed plans about how to neutralize people who ate meat, including maps of our houses, our daily schedules, and even information about our pets. The detective said some of the stuff was so concerning that they had to involve the FBI's domestic terrorism unit. They also found out that Karen had been using fake identities online to organize harassment campaigns against meat eaters in other neighborhoods before she moved to ours. This was not her first time pulling this kind of stunt. The red liquid she poured on my grill, it was actually fake blood mixed with some kind of acid that could have seriously damaged not just my equipment, but potentially hurt someone if they touched it. She had planned the whole thing to cause maximum damage. Karen was charged with criminal trespass, destruction of property, harassment, stalking, making terroristic threats, and something called criminal conspiracy related to her online activities. Her bail was set at $50,000, which apparently held her family refused to pay. The trial was last month, and it was a complete disaster for Karen. My lawyer said it was one of the most open and shut cases he had ever seen. The prosecution played the security camera footage, her own phone recordings, and read excerpts from her online post. And the plants they found on her devices. Karen represented herself. Her lawyer had dropped her when she kept insisting that animals have more rights than humans and that she was fighting a holy war. She used her time on the stand to go on long rants about veganism and kept referring to me as a mass murderer. Even though the judge warned her multiple times to stick to the facts, the jury took less than an hour to find her guilty on all counts. Karen was sentenced to 18 months in prison, 3 years of probation after release, and ordered to pay $8,500 in restitution for my damaged grill and the emotional distress caused to my family. She has also been issued a permanent restraining order that prevents her from coming within 500 feet of my house or contacting me in any way. The judge was particularly harsh in his sentencing. He said Karen's behavior represented an escalating pattern of extremist harassment that posed a genuine threat to public safety, and that personal dietary choices don't give anyone the right to terrorize their neighbors. During the sentencing, Karen had a complete meltdown. She started screaming about how the justice system was specious and how she was being persecuted for standing up for the voiceless. Security had to physically remove her from the courtroom. The house across the street has been empty since her arrest. I heard through the neighborhood grapevine that she had been renting it and got evicted when she couldn't make bail. Her landlord found the walls covered with photos of me and my family, along with detailed maps of our property and daily routines. Super creepy stuff. The best part, though, the vegan activist group that helped her with the protest completely disavowed her after her arrest. They put out a statement saying that Karen's actions don't represent the values of peaceful animal rights advocacy and that they had been deceived about the true nature of the situation. And well, it's been quiet in the neighborhood since then. We've had several barbecues without any issues. And honestly, they taste even better knowing that Karen is behind bars where she belongs. My niece, who was so traumatized by the protest, actually asked if we could have a celebration barbecue when we told her the bad lady couldn't bother us anymore. Well, we did, and it was one of the best cookouts we've ever had. And yeah, guys, I can only say one thing. This Karen found out what FO means. Props to OP for handling the situation like this. And the next one is an absolutely crazy neighbor story that is titled Neighbors. Took my daughter because of suspected attempt to drink and drive. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss this one. What the hell? So I am male, late 20s in Colorado. I quit drinking soda and energy drinks a few months ago. I have not consumed alcohol in years, and I replaced that habit with drinking Martinelli sparkling apple juice. The juice comes in 10-ounce glass bottles that look very similar to Corona beer bottles. And here lies my issue. So this morning I was walking to my car from my apartment, and I had a bottle of my juice in one hand and my 1-year-old daughter in her car seat in the other hand. My neighbors basically jumped me from behind. One grabbed my daughter's car seat, and the other one was punching, kicking, and yelling at me. He was saying stuff like, "The nerve of you to drink and to try to drive with your baby." As a result, my juice bottle shattered in the parking lot, cutting my hand, and my cell phone screen is destroyed, and I think my nose is fractured. Most importantly, though, the neighbor who took my baby went inside his apartment with her, and it took 10 minutes of me explaining through the screen door that I was not about to drink and drive, but that I was drinking apple juice. But this all just happened. I'm calling the cops. Any suggestions? By the way, I didn't get any apologies or anything from the neighbors. They said they were doing their duty to protect the community. And yeah, guys, if you would have been in this crazy situation, what would you have done? I probably would have instantly called the cops on the neighbors because that was almost like a kidnapping, if you ask me. One person in the comments said, assuming they get charged with assault and kidnapping, you know the victim of a violent crime and should be able to get help from the local victim's advocate in covering your medical bills and their replacement screen for the phone. If that does not pan out, you can pursue this in small claims court. Document every dime you spend throughout this episode, from medical bills to phone repairs to any transportation needs, parking costs at the hospital, medical supplies purchased, bandages, etc. That should all be reimbursable. Cannot wait to hear how this pans out. Best of luck to you. Comment number 2. I think calling the cops and involving them is a very important first step. Once that is done, if you have more questions, come back. I would have called 911 while they had your daughter, though. That could have gone real bad real fast. Comment number 3. I'm so sorry this happened to you. Hopefully police has looked at your daughter. And most importantly, have you taken her to the ER to get looked at? Go to the ER to have the doctor and nurses record your injuries as well. Update number 1. The police showed up. As soon as they pulled up, more than half a dozen neighbors came out and are giving witness reports now. Update number 2. Both men were arrested, and I'll be making my way down to the police station in a few minutes. I'll be talking to detectives. The police assured me off the record that both will be serving time because felonies were committed. Final update to the story. So thanks to everyone who supported me. Here's how it ended. Both neighbors were arrested. The one who attacked me was charged with assault and criminal mischief. He took a plea deal. 6 months in county jail, 3 years probation, and paid for my medical bills and the broken phone. The one who took my daughter, though, was charged with Class 4 felony kidnapping and child abuse. He tried to claim it was a community safety thing, but the jury did not buy it. He was convicted and sentenced to 18 months in state prison, plus added to Colorado's child abuse registry. He is banned from living near schools or daycares now, and I also filed a civil suit. We ended up settling out of court for $72,000. That covered all my expenses, therapy, and pain and suffering. They were both evicted from the complex as well. My daughter's doing fine, and thankfully she's too young to remember it. I moved us to a new place, and we're doing a lot better. Just want to say, don't let anyone make you feel crazy for defending yourself and your child. What they did was not the concerned neighbor behavior. It was violent and reckless. I'm glad justice was served. Thanks again, Reddit. And before we end the video, we will read one last story from our Petty Revenge. It is titled, My Boss Kept Scheduling Meetings During My Lunch, so I started eating lunch in every meeting. So I used to take my lunch break at the same time every day, 12 to 1. I don't eat breakfast, just coffee and lots of water. So my lunch is essential, and I cannot just skip it. My calendar was blocked, but my boss, a newly promoted power-tripping person, started scheduling meetings right in the middle of it. The first couple times I let it slide. Figured maybe it was urgent, but then it became a pattern. I pushed back and reminded him that it was during my break, and he said, well, we all have to make sacrifices sometimes. Cool. Got it. Next meeting, I showed up with a full plate of spaghetti and meatballs, had my camera on and mic unmuted, slurping and chewing. Occasionally gave thumbs up while mid-bite. A few days later, it repeated, so I brought sticky wings. Last week on Thursday, it happened again, and glad I still had my pizza. He finally asked, do you have to eat during the meeting? I smiled and said, we all have to make sacrifices sometimes. It is Friday today. We didn't have any meetings during my lunch hours this week. And yeah, guys, please like the video if you want to support me, and I will see you again.